real quick. Maybe we'll do like 3 words each back. Let's just play some Pictionary real quick. Maybe we'll do like 3 words each back and forth or something.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. All right. Then you're up first.
Okay. Let's make it real.
Was it robot?
Yep.
Hey, winner. Okay, my turn. The general overview sort of the features of the app. You see when I load in here, it's going to give me this alert prompt to enter a name. So I'll name myself Duffy. And then you see, look, there's already a cool picture of a house and trees and everything. Even when you reload the page, the images are actually stored as a series of marks on the server. And so those marks get served up to me both on page load, but also when a different player finishes a mark. So you can see right now there's this little sunglasses guy appearing in the corner line by line. Jared's drawing that in real time, and then as soon as he finishes a mark, it gets sent to the server. The server packages it up and sends it back to me. So the 2 big major components we have here are the interactive canvas, which you see both I can draw on. Like if I want to put windows on my house, I can do that. But also Jared can draw on. And so as we finish those marks, they're appearing on both clients because they're actually getting handled on the server side. Now, the other interactive element we have is this text box where we can send messages to each other. Hi, what's up? And then you see that message getting sent out. And that's also going to be appearing on Jared's screen. And he could reply to me. That gets handled through the server as well. Other little client-side functionalities here. Color selector. So clicking on these different colors, that's going to change the color of my brush. And size selector. So clicking on these different circles will change the size of my brush. And as Jared was just talking about, clear the drawing. Ruin Jared's whole drawing. Sorry, Jared. Oh, look, Jared's name is undefined. The reason this happens is because when he loaded in, he put nothing in the prompt, the alert prompt. And so there was no string there. Okay, so let's talk about how this actually works. This is a project built in Node.js. So the server is handled in Node. And the front end is all HTML, JS, and then CSS because it's a web page. So that's exactly what you would expect. When I start making a mark, so when I click and drag, I have all these events on the canvas. So there's a mouse down event that's going to start recording marks, and then I'm going to record a mark for each mouse move. And when I let go on mouse up, it's actually going to take all those marks and send them to the server. And then the server has a model called whiteboard object, which is a custom class that we created. And a whiteboard has a current drawing, and it also has features to clear the drawing or add new marks to a drawing. So all a drawing is a collection of marks, and a mark is a data structure that we built that can either be a point or a line or a series of lines. So actually, anytime you make one movement, you're going to be creating a whole bunch of marks every time the mouse turned, essentially. And all those marks know their XY coordinates. They know the radius of the brush that you're currently using. They know the color of the brush. And then they get pushed into an array. That array gets sent to the server and added to the whiteboard. So the model for this is really that whiteboard object that exists on the server. And that whiteboard object is going to be keeping a copy of the current drawing. So as you see here, if I hit F5, I'm resetting the page. So during this page reload, Jared is still going to have the image up on his screen. I'll give myself a new name. Here's test 2. And bam, I got my drawing back, because as soon as I loaded the client, it requested the drawing from the server, and the server handed the drawing back over, remembering all those same marks. The view for this is pretty obvious. The view is the client side. So that's the HTML, the JS, and the CSS. That all happens on the client. And even these controls here, right? So I can click and drag to trigger mouse events, and I can click on these different colors or these different brush sizes for making different selections, so that I can treat those marks differently, right? Or make custom marks, whatever I want those marks to be. Now the controller is handled through software, through a library for Node.js that's called Socket.js. Or I'm sorry, Socket.io. And so you can see here, I've got my, I don't think Jared can see it. Jared, I got my Visual Studio pulled up. So this file is the client socket. This exists on the client side. It's going to get an instance of IO, which is actually a socket factory. It builds socket objects. And this socket is an event handler. So we can add socket events with this function called add socket events. So whenever we get a message from the server, for example, we're going to take it and we're going to add it into our message div. So that's how we handle text on the client side. Whenever we get a shape from the server, okay, and a shape, remember, is a collection of marks, then we're going to do a make mark on those, which make mark is a custom function that's built into the client logic. This is where we handle all the actual drawing within the view. So client socket is the client side of the controller. Now on the server side, we have an IO object. This is the input-output object that is, as we remember, had made the socket that was handed to each of the clients, but there's only one IO object. There's one socket per client. So every time a client socket makes a request to the server, be it player name, be it shape, be it message, be it request drawing or clear drawing, then this controller is going to be able to take that event and any data that may come with that event and trace it to the correct model. In this case, mostly to the whiteboard, but sometimes just to hand that information back to the other clients, i.e., if we request a drawing, then, so if a client requests the newest drawing, then the IO object will emit a shape event, and it's going to use whiteboard's current drawing. So that was a whole lot of talking. The general model view controller, the MVC here, is our whiteboard object, is the model. Our socket events are the controllers, and our view is the HTML, which is the website that you actually see, right? Where we both get controls from the client and display data to the client. So that's how we're using the model view controller pattern for this project. Now, as far as the factory pattern goes, we are using the factory pattern in client logic JS here, where we create our marks. So as you can see, we have these different functions for making different marks, and this whole client logic is actually acting as a mark factory. So if I go back to the client, you can see I have a lot of different selections for different types of marks I could make, right? I can make different colors of marks, or I can make different sizes of marks. But no matter what, whether that mark is just a point or whether that mark is a line, or whether that mark is yellow or black, or big or small. You don't need an example of all of these, but the point being, we are dynamically creating marks anytime the mouse moves on the canvas. Now, that mark factory churns out a bunch of these different marks and can package them all up and send them to the server. Once they're serialized and sent to the server, though, they don't function as drawings anymore. It's just a set of data. And so the server is going to turn around and send them back to the other client. As in, you see this tree and these flowers and this, or the tree and the birds in the sun that Jared drew. I didn't get as drawings from him. I got as serialized data. And so if I get a collection of mark objects, the client side, the view here, needs to be able to iterate through those marks and do a draw function on them all the same, regardless of if those marks have different attributes or not. So in that way, we needed our marks to be polymorphic because they all have to be able to display in the same way without us really knowing the attributes of the mark from the outside. We can just treat them as a generic mark. As a result of that, anytime I drag my mouse around the canvas here, and it's actually it's all event triggered. So this is on mouse move event. On mouse move event, if I've clicked down without clicking up, every time I move that mouse, it's going to trigger that make mark function within the client logic.js, and that's going to create dynamically create these massive lists of marks, which we can then package up and send as a serialized array to the server. And when the server sends them back to the other clients, they can treat those as generic marks. They don't need to know anything special about the marks in order to execute draw on them. They can just execute draw, and they're going to get the same picture on their side of the client. So then, and really, because we're using sockets here and because we have so many input events, there's probably a lot that we could say about the observer pattern too, although that was the last project.
Got it.
I'm gonna put it on hard. Let's see.
This better not be like amoeba.
This is sort of an abstract idea. Okay, I think this is actually in verse. Wait. Okay, you get one more guess, and if you don't get it right, then I just lose, and we're gonna go to your turn.
Oh, bro.
Yeah, the word was signal. I don't know how I'm supposed to draw a signal. Whatever. I'm bat signal, pretty close.
Just to give a little bit of a background, we kind of went through a couple. We went through kind of a couple of different iterations when we were coming up with the main framework for this game, or for this project, I should say. We tossed around a couple of different ideas, but we kind of weren't exactly sure specifically how we were going to implement the MVC pattern for this particular project. What we originally started out with, and this is kind of evident in the background, in the background of the project here, where you can see kind of the VHS overlay. We originally envisioned having kind of a cookie clicker game. And if you aren't familiar with what that is, it's essentially a browser-based game where an individual clicks on like a cookie JPEG, and they accumulate a series of points. Well, after a certain number of points are accumulated by the user, they have the ability to buy different objects, which allows them to kind of automate that clicking process. And from there, the point total just kind of is incremented, kind of automatically. And from there, you're able to buy different things like, if you want to buy like a cookie farm or a cookie mine, something like, and then the game just kind of progresses from there. So it kind of becomes kind of similar to something like SimCity, where it's kind of a lot of emergent-based behavior, and you're able to buy different things. So that was kind of the original implementation that we were looking at for this particular game. What we originally decided to go with was a design called Spaghetti Cat, and so what we wanted to do was take a PNG file that I found on the internet of a cat eating spaghetti, which was kind of which we felt was a good meme material. And basically, what the individual would do, what the client would do, would be similar to that cookie clicking mechanism, where they would click on the meme and they'd gather like a certain amount of karma, which would be kind of the point system within the game. And then the VHS overlay was just kind of give it a bit of a retro feel, but just based on the fact that the particular file that I found was kind of a little older in style. So that was kind of the original iteration that we used for the game at first. The further that we went on in development, though, we realized that kind of an emphasis on interactivity was something that was missing from the design. We felt that it would be a lot more interesting, both as from a design standpoint and from a gameplay standpoint, if the user was able to kind of able to interact. So we ended up kind of discussing the matter a little bit more, and we felt that just having something really simple at the get-go would kind of satisfy that requirement. So we wanted to see, originally, or we wanted to see how something would operate at a baseline, to see if any of it was feasible. And so what we ended up doing was creating essentially kind of a paint game here. But the further that we got on in development, we realized that it was actually a lot more fun than what we had originally envisioned, and we felt that the gameplay in this was actually really interesting. It proposed a lot of really interesting design problems that we had to address, and actually the gameplay itself turned out to be a lot more engrossing than what we thought it was going to be when we kind of used it as kind of a stand-in, kind of a template, as opposed to going on to something that was a lot more grandiose in design. So the basic interface here, and I'm sure, and my partner Chris here will be able to kind of do some of this along with the presentation here. A user is able to log in to our system here and basically select colors that they want to draw with. So it's just a basic paint template, found on any Microsoft operating system, across the world. And so what you can see here is that Chris is drawing through his client, as you can see here. Now, since I'm logged in, I can also select a color. I'll go with red. And I can also draw interactively on this canvas here. And basically what you do is it allows for kind of an interactive environment. It's kind of an interactive artistic environment where multiple users are able to kind of create art together. Right now we're using just some super basic colors. For future extensibility, we discussed adding a whole array of the color palette, which would allow for a lot more intricate design, as well as well as some additional functionality too that would allow users to be able to create much more complex and interesting designs. But the other feature that we can use here is we have this chat dialog box here. So you can give the other player or the other user, I should say, feedback on their art. If they're making something that's interesting, or if you want to change design, all you have to do is type this in. Here, I'll lie to Chris here about this particular design. But that really kind of hits home at the idea of kind of a community-based design that we were really excited about using. And if the design becomes too busy, or Chris doesn't like me drawing all over his pictures here, and I say, no, that's no good. What he can do is hit this clear drawing feature down here, and it wipes the template out, and then you're able to start over again. What in the world? Oh. What? Yellow. Oh.
Hey, diving suit. No, that's not even remotely close. Diving suit. Perfect. Good. Okay, let me